Hello everybody, good evening, I'm Cosmic Claire, and welcome to another one of my nightly video blogs. It's Christmas Eve here, and I suppose it is all over the world actually, one thing is that this time of year we hear a lot about people reviewing the things that have gone down this year, and well, believe me, I don't normally listen to the BBC very much, although I do indulge in a little bit of Radio 3, although even that is suffering from celebrity-itis these days. However, anyway, just in between enjoying some Wagner on Radio 3 this evening, I went into the other room and turned on the radio, and somehow I'd left it on Radio 4, and I was found myself listening for about 2 minutes, listening to one of these Review of the Year programmes, and the first person to be introduced was David Steele, Lord Steele, the former leader of the Liberals and Liberal Democrat Party, and the programme was begun with a litany of disasters that had happened this year. George Osborne being booed at the Paralympics was one that came to mind, as I recall hearing. And when David Steele was asked what he thought were the most important things that had happened this year, he said that we shouldn't go on a downer about it, but because the Queen's Jubilee and the Olympics were both such great successes for our wonderful nation here, Britain, the United Kingdom, that we should be proud of that. And I thought, if this is what it's come to, that all that this nation can produce is spectacle, then we really have reached the end of the civilization. The importance of the Queen's Jubilee definitely was considered, that at a 60-year cycle, was definitely deemed more important than the 5,125-year cycle of the Mayans. And yet, to the people who would discount the Mayans, you might as well say, well, the Queen's 60 years is just as much an arbitrary thing, though of course the Mayan calendar isn't an arbitrary thing. It follows all kinds of natural cycles. What this is about what in Roman times they used to call bread and circuses, except nowadays they don't even give away bread, it's just the circus. You just, oh look, there's a circus in the street, oh look, it's the Queen, she's parading around for her Jubilee, saying, look, I've had 60 years at the top and I've still got another few left in me. She'll probably make her like 100 like her mother, so that's another 14 years. Of course the Olympics was the other thing. Well, I suppose there's much noble endeavour, and I don't want to say anything against the athletes who participated, because I'm sure they all did so in the most honourable spirit and everything. But the main reason why I couldn't watch it was because I have the feeling that it was being so utilised for propaganda to tell us all how wonderful our country is and everything, even though after the taxpayer and lottery funds, which should have gone to more charitable things, had paid for a vast amount of it, the giant corporations who provided facilities for it, of course, reaped profits. So, in the balance sheet, the British taxpayer has, paid all this money to these corporations, basically. So, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that David Steele is just looking at a glossy surface which has very little to do with the ground level reality that most people in this country have to deal with, as we find people with health disabilities being forced onto the dole queue. It is absolutely scandalous. It is absolutely scandalous. And this, all these things which are being cut could be paid for by just proper collecting of the taxes from the corporations. Oh, who made so much money out of the Olympics? Oh, right, okay. And so what this is about looking beyond the media propaganda. I don't even want to glorify it with the term of brainwashing, because it is just so transparent that anybody who can't see through it really needs to get a pair of spectacles, metaphorically speaking. The corporations and the government and people who control the financial system are completely acting like gangsters. Of course, Max Kaiser calls them banksters, and that's what they are. They're bankers and gangsters. And yet we're told that everything is wonderful, we've got this marvellous spectacle. It's all just complete distraction. Look over there, look over there. Don't look at what's really happening with people's standard of living, having their their money that they were, they had paid national insurance for these things, and they're not getting them. It's just really, really important. I suppose the message this evening is look beyond the mainstream media. Please look beyond the mainstream media to see what is happening. I gave up on the BBC after watching the Arab Spring and seeing the cynical portrayal of what was going on there in the Egyptian Revolution. The first week, you had Frank Gardner on News 24 saying, oh, well, of course, Western interests, behind Mubarak, he's been a good friend to the West all this time, Western interests would like to keep him there. Second week, well, there are some difficulties here if he's got so much resistance from the people. It's problematic in keeping his position there. The army don't want to support him if he doesn't have the will of the people with him, so it's getting a bit problematic. Third week, Obama and Clinton have already spoken by now. Yeah, he's a tyrant, he's been a dictator for 30 years, he's been putting people through prisons and executing them without just trial or anything like that for years now, and he's obviously a tyrant who needs to be replaced, and he should go now. Hang on, 2 weeks ago he was our the buddy friend of Western interests, and I just thought, who's pulling the strings on this? Who is telling Frank Gardner what to tell whoever the news raider is? I mean, Peter Sissons, at least Peter Sissons, had the courage and honesty to get out, because I really admire that, actually. Great for Peter Sissons. I used to see him on the Sunday afternoon shift, thinking, this guy, he's interviewed prime ministers and been a frontline news reporter, reader, interviewer for 20 years, and he's relegated to the Sunday afternoon shift on BBC News 24. I mean, he must have just been so glad to get out of that. People telling him what questions to ask and what answers he should get. It's all got to be fitted into the whatever the current politically correct zeitgeist is. And so, short while after the Arab Spring, I thought, well, my TV licence is coming up for renewal, and I'm not going to renew it. And I rang up the licence people, and I said, I'm going to give up my cable subscription, and the analogue signal's going off shortly, and I'm just going to use my TV for the occasional DVD or video. And I don't want you pestering me, because I'm telling you straight that I'm not going to watch broadcast TV, because it's not worth watching. It's not even worth watching for free, even for people who try to get round the TV license. There may be certain legal ways around that. I'm not sure. I'm not interested in watching. I was kind of maintaining the whole thing for one episode of Stargate Universe a week, and then it's only on 26 weeks a year anyway, so it was the end. I thought, no, I can't support this. I cannot stand this any longer. This is the propaganda. You're paying 140 or whatever it is pounds a year to pay these people to fund them to tell you lies, or at least, at the very best, extremely well edited versions of what's really going on. I mean, I'm not saying that they're deliberately what they say is completely untrue, but the slant that it gives on it, and the ignoring of information that's really going on is just, as Goebbels said, you have to have a bit of truth in there for people to believe it. But also, as Hitler said, make the lie big enough and anybody will believe it. So you've got a kind of combination there, few big lies. The lies are in the slant, they're in the interpretation, it's in the assumption that the Palestinians are just troublemakers from nowhere, when actually they're people who have been forcibly, ethnically cleansed and dispossessed of their land, and the Israelis are an occupying force, most of whom are certainly not indigenous, and most of whom aren't even racially Semitic, because a lot of them are descended. The Ashkenazi are descended from the Eastern European Khazars, who were converts to Judaism, not ancestral people from the tribes of Israel, who the Sephardim are the people who, the Jewish people who spread around the Middle East and the Mediterranean after the diaspora and the Rome and all that kind of stuff. Most of these Israelis are people who've come from the north and Russia and all that area. And it's a criminal thing that they're doing on the basis of supposedly biblical prophecy, which is a pretty dubious kind of thing. I have great respect for those what do they call them, Orthodox Jews who stand up and speak out against the occupation of Palestine. Tremendously brave and courageous people, and they too are standing up against the lies and the propaganda. So there is so much more going on behind the scenes than what is presented to you on the mainstream media, and it is certainly not all wonderful Jubilee and wonderful Olympics and aren't we great. It's like, this is not 1897, Queen Victoria's Jubilee at the height of empire. Even that was dubious in its time, but we are at a far different stage from that now, and it is just such a cover-up, at least in the 1890s. economy was fairly sound and there was good employment, which certainly isn't now. So I would urge you to take alternative news sources seriously. Go and look for the things out there that start with something kind of middle ground like Huffington Post and stuff like that, and follow the links. Watch a few of those odd videos on YouTube like this one that tell you about things that aren't on the mainstream. Because who knows what might be out there, and I've barely touched on some of the weirder things in my video blogs. Ancient civilizations is only the tip of the iceberg, and Jungian collective mind evolution. It's all a much bigger picture than what we are presented with by the mainstream media. So there's so much more that can be said about this. But the thing is, do your own research. Think for yourself. That's what it's all about, folks. So anyway, well, I will wind it up here at this point and bid you a very happy Christmas, everybody, or New Aeon, or whatever it is you believe in for this time of year, Yuletide, all kinds of things that are celebrated. Saturnalia, even. Well, it's the festivities for the beginning of the new cycle, and may it be a bountiful and prosperous one for all of us, and the more so for those who think for themselves and see through the illusions and deceptions. So I'll wind it up with that. Happy Christmas, and in Lakesh. Found myself listening to, for about 2 minutes, listening to one of these Review of the Year programs, and the first person to be introduced was David Steele, Lord Steele, the former leader of the Liberals and Liberal Democrat Party. Hello everybody, good evening, I'm Cosmic Claire, and welcome to another one of my nightly video blogs. It's Christmas Eve here, and I suppose it is all over the world actually, but one these days. However, anyway, just in between enjoying some Wagner on Radio 3 this evening, I went into the other room and turned on the radio, and somehow I'd left it on Radio 4, and I was thing is that this time of year we hear a lot about people reviewing the things that have gone down this year, and well, believe me, I don't normally listen to the BBC very much, although I do indulge in a little bit of Radio 3, although even that is suffering from celebrity items. And the programme was begun with a litany of disasters that have happened this year. George Osborne being booed at the Paralympics was one that came to mind, as I recall hearing. And when David Steele was asked what he thought were the most important things that had happened this year,